Hi Twitch, and welcome back. I'm Abby, I'm here with Ian, and we are joined by a very special guest today. So this is Werner Vogels, CTO of Amazon.com. Werner, thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, Abby, for coming. Hey, well, Ian, you too. Hi.
So this is a cool opportunity because usually it's just Werner and I battling to the death on Twitter over who has the better T-shirt. Please feel free to vote. So we have some questions for you, and we'll be taking some questions from the Twitch audience as well. So if you have a question there, feel free to pass it on. I'm going to start off with a fun one, and it's that I think you do a ton of traveling, and I want to know what's your favorite city to visit? Where's the favorite place that you've been, either this year or in general?
Amsterdam, of course.
Amsterdam.
Born and raised, you know, what else do you do? Yeah, so Amsterdam definitely is my favorite city to visit. Although I think in Europe there's a number of opportunities where startups are being built. I think Lisbon is at this moment one of the cities that is really hot in terms of attracting a lot of young talent that wants to work on technology. And so I think, Europe is probably the best place to be at the moment.
Obviously, he means except for New York, which is currently flooding inside the building.
Just tell you, we have lightning, we have water in the foyer,
It's beautiful. So I have a serious question, not related to your favorite city, although I also love Amsterdam. But you've been in a number of keynotes this year, and you've said that security is everyone's responsibility and that we're all builders. So do you have any tips for people for building with security in mind and how they can kind of keep that in mind at every level of their application?
Well, I think so. There's multiple parts to that story, of course. One of them is, I think, the developer pipeline that has changed dramatically. I think in the past 2-3 years, where almost everybody is doing continuous integration and continuous deployment. That means that you need to integrate security in that whole process. Yeah, and whether that is sort of artifact checking or automatic code reviews, or just simple alarms going off when someone adds a new library to your system. Yeah, because that actually should trigger a security review. So that's one thing, thinking about how can you secure your pipeline. Then I think the most important thing you can do is look at all the automation tools that we've built in AWS to help you automate all your security processes, and whether that is inspector, checking whether you're still in compliance, or checking against a whole set of vulnerabilities once you do deployment, whether using guard duty to figure out what are normal access patterns and access them, Macy to figure out where are all your sensitive data, and what are the access patterns to that sensitive data. So we built so many automation tools. Take a look at them and integrate them into all the processes that you have.
You don't have to do everything alone, right? That there's so many cool tools and products out there to help you be secure without you having to do every single thing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the security posture of organizations that make use of security automation really improves over time. And of course, not just only the services that we've built, but take here the floor at the Expo. There's quite a few security companies that have been building great products that work really well together with AWS.
Awesome.
There's also, what do you think about organizations like Capital One that have brought forward their own open source security additions to AWS?
Well, I think open source plays an important role in quite a few of the security tools, such that we can actually review the tools itself. Yep. Remember when we launched S2N, the libSSL library, I think, contained something like 50,000 lines of code, and it's very hard to prove that one correct. And so we built S2N specifically as an implementation of TLS that was very lightweight, but also we could use automated verification tools on the code to be confident that what we had built was correct, and then open source it.
Great. Another big theme for the summit here in New York, Werner, has been AI and machine learning. Of course, it's a massive area of investment for Amazon right now, and I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask you about this. The first is usage of AI and machine learning within Amazon itself. What do you consider to be particularly cool or impactful use cases for AI and ML within the broader Amazon businesses that we have?
There's almost no place within Amazon where you will not encounter machine learning. I mean, after all, we know a lot about our customers, we know a lot about the processes that we have. We've collected this data over past, so for me, machine learning is always building smarter applications by basically using data from the past to make solid decisions about the future. And whether that is in ways where we can protect our customers, like, for example, fraud detection. Yeah, and after all, we sit on billions of orders within Amazon. It would be silly not to use that data from the past to sort of make predictions about the future when new orders come in. But also counterfeit good detection, vendor lead time detection, inventory level setting, abusive review detection. All of these are machine learning processes. And of course, as a consumer, you've always been confronted with similarities and recommendations and bestsellers. All those things are actually machine learning applications.
Yep, so there's a ton of use cases within Amazon. I'm interested there that you didn't mention voice. I've seen you speak at quite a few conferences over the course of the last year or so, Web Summit and then Rise and Collision. And you've spoken at all of these major startup events about the importance of voice-centric interfaces for future application development. Can you just talk a little bit about why you think that's such a significant shift? Why do you think it's so important for the future?
Well, yeah, so I think if we look at sort of the interfaces that we built to digital systems over time, they've all been driven by the capabilities of the machinery. Keyboard, screen, mouse, finger, and that's it. Yeah, but not because that's the way that we normally communicate. It is how the machine forces us to work with it. I believe that we can unlock digital systems for so many more people to use if we would just use more human-centric interfaces. And I think voice is definitely the first starting point there. Of course, there's been major advances in the past, let's say 3-4 years or 5 years in terms of hardware and software platforms that now make it possible to build real-time interactive systems. After all, for example with Alexa, you really want an answer to come back within a second to make sure that it is a natural way. Now, I think 5 years ago we couldn't do that because both the platform, the hardware and the software platforms weren't there.
Okay.
So on the same subject of voice forward, what's your favorite Alexa-enabled product that you've seen? Is it Billy Bass?
That one was actually really funny because it really demonstrated how easy it is to integrate the Alexa voice service into anything that you do. Yeah, and so, but I definitely enjoy the fridges that GE is building that has Alexa built in. Yeah, and so, and whether that is, or my Sonos speakers have Alexa built in. I understand that quite a few of the car manufacturers will be integrating Alexa. So we'll see Alexa coming back in sort of almost all other places in our lives. But then also, for those who really want to build their own voice applications without using Alexa, like the guys at Slack have done, where you can both use Lex as well as Polly to start building very interesting applications.
I feel like it's cool because it makes the technology feel really human in a way that it didn't before. Because me just typing to my computer never feels quite the same as talking to an Echo in my house. And like even for my mom, who's not very technical, she likes to talk to the Echo devices, but doesn't care about the computer. But the fact that it talks back and it interacts with her makes it feel so much more human.
Yeah. So for example, if you ever given your grandmother an iPad, you know that the only thing she does is hit the Skype button.
Yeah.
However, you could say, hey, show me the kids from show me the photos from the grandkids in the vacation in Puerto Rico last year, and it will show up automatically. Still be using digital systems a lot more.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the same goes for a story I recently heard, was that apparently kids that have an Alexa in their house will learn to pronounce much more clearly. Yeah? And so, but in general, I think voice has the ability to unlock digital systems for so many more people. Not just in our society, but take, for example, in China. Our typing is easy compared to what the Chinese have to do on their phone.
Yeah.
And if you look at the numbers from Baidu, for example, there is, I think in the past 2 years, a 4x increase in sort of voice request, but a 10x increase in sort of talking back. Yeah, and so you see massive increase of the using voice in all sorts of different countries.
So I have a question from Twitch actually, and they want to know, what's the best part of your job?
Visiting customers, without any doubt. Yeah, I think that's the fun part of being in Amazon, is our customer centricity allows you to really get insight into how people are building their systems and what their pain points still are. Yeah, always as a fun thing said that in AWS we're in the business of pain management for enterprises. But as you look, for example, today on stage, what we had here, we had Paul Cheeseborough from 20th Century Fox, is an amazing story. Folks from DTCC, that was actually pretty special, such a heavily regulated industry that is moving over to AWS. And then of course Epic, with the way that they're powering Fortnite on AWS is just, that was just a really great start of the day.
You literally couldn't build apps like that before the cloud, right? That level of growth and the viral explosion in usage of something like that would be impossible to deliver any other way. I really love use cases like that.
Absolutely, and I think each and every one of the speakers made it clear that it's not just young startups or something like that that are looking for internet scale. It is, we're enabling almost every enterprise to become way more agile and drive that cost down at the same time.
A very important question, which is, where can we get a Werner Against the Machine t-shirt?
Ask Mackenzie. Mackenzie Cussett, when he was CTO of Oscar here in New York, I interviewed him on stage at Reinvent, and he brought this t-shirt for me.
We also reprinted it for the San Francisco Summit this year.
Yeah, that was a good success.
I was pretty pleased with that. So speaking of t-shirts, we know that you have a history at Reinvent in the past of wearing a band t-shirt, and it's not even a band t-shirt, it's usually some sort of EDM DJ. What's your favorite
No, that's
band
actually not true.
It's not true.
No, because all of them have been t-shirts from Seattle bands that I've worn.
Oh.
Yeah?
I had a Pearl Jam t-shirt.
Yeah, well that's probably the only Seattle band that I have some doubts about, but okay.
Crushed. Just crushed. They want to know, do you play Fortnite?
Yeah, but I die within 5 seconds.
So far we've all said that. By the way, it turns out that evangelism is not so good at Fortnite.
It turns actually out that I just got advice from someone saying you have to hide a lot.
That's
well,
a
you
good
don't
strategy.
score any points then either, but you know, if you hide a lot, you can survive a longer time.
I guess it depends on which one's more important, is staying alive or
dying.
So something else about Reinvent. So anything specific you're excited about, or do you have any kind of personal tips for having an awesome Reinvent for the customers?
Wear comfortable shoes is the thing I've heard most.
Number one pro tip.
Yeah, I think making sure that you get a look at the agenda really early on to figure out what are the kind of things that you could go to. Look up for backup scenarios if some of the sessions turn out to be overpopulated. And in general, I think if you have a chance, try and stay in one place for an afternoon or for a morning instead of having to travel all over Las Vegas to the places where you need to be. Unfortunately, for some of our customers, it become really large. It's a really large event, and as such, you have to really make sure you plan right up front.
Another question from Twitch: does Amazon have drones?
We have drones. Yes, we have drones. I mean, it's well known. I mean, if you look at, there's a video where we do the first delivery of a drone, via drone to someone in the UK actually. I think the group in Cambridge did that one. Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and I have nothing to announce at this moment.
So a question from the stream about the breadth of AWS services. So there's always an opportunity here to learn new things. Even working on the team, we're often learning about new aspects of AWS. From your own personal perspective, what's the most interesting thing that you've learned over the course of the last year or last few months? Is there anything that you're personally researching or digging into?
I think one of the things that happened today, I think what we announced today in the performance improvements for S3, I think are really major. It may have looked on the outside as a pretty obscure problem, but especially people that are running very large EMR workloads had to really jump through hoops to sort of manage their prefixes and to get the performance out of it. And so I think the kind of things that the team has been doing over the years, and as you see how the the architecture of S3 behind the covers has evolved over time to improve performance. I think today's launch will be major for quite a few of the customers that are running large analytic workloads.
Yep.
So I have changing gears a little bit, from Twitch, what advice would you give someone who's in college that's maybe looking to join AWS or Amazon more broadly?
Well, there is something called the Amazon leadership principles. Yeah, if you are, you can search for them on Google or your favorite search engine, and you'll find that those are 14 leadership principles that are very important within Amazon. It's all about customer obsession, it is about ownership, and it's about disagree, commit, and dive deep. Really have a look at all of those leadership principles, because it turns out those are the most important things in which you will be interviewed on. It also will determine whether you are someone that really can work at Amazon or at AWS. More important maybe even than your technical skills, because I always think you can learn those over time. Yeah, and so it's more important whether you fit into the Amazon culture and you can thrive in there, more than sort of what your real technical skills are.
I was actually surprised too when I joined that the leadership principles weren't just in the interview. They're in every document, they're in meetings, they're in conversations, and they're in performance. Everything comes back to the leadership principles. They don't just end at the interview. Twitch wants to know, what has surprised you the most about your job?
How much time I'm spending at airports.
I have also
But I think that goes for all three of us. Yeah, I've learned over time to get some zen into my travels. Yeah, especially at airports when yet another time it is 4-hour delays, and you learn how to get your work done, not to get upset, not to be angry at airlines. Because just stuff happens. Yeah.
Also, Amsterdam does have the best airport.
Well, there's a long walk at times. If you have to get to the end of the game where the United flights are, that's a nightmare. Yeah.
One of the better ones.
Seems like the audience on Twitch also have an irrational love of airports, especially airport lounges. Yeah, seeing quite a lot of comments on that.
They want to know which airport lounge is the best.
Which airport lounge is the best?
I'm actually not spending that much time in airport lounges. I think they're overpriced and overpopulated. I tend to just find a quiet corner in the airport, go sit on the floor and get out your laptop and do your work.
Follow-up question from Randall, I know this is from you. Vim or Emacs?
VI, of course.
If you can't see, by the way, because you're watching on Twitch chat, Randall Hunt is literally jumping up and down
in front of the studio down here.
Do you have a favorite product? That's also from Twitch.
Do I have what?
D-Bad says, do you have a favorite product?
A favorite product? You mean
like
at AWS?
Yeah.
Well, I already mentioned that I still think that S3 is just a ninth world wonder in the way that it is built. If you think about when we started building S3, we had an idea about what scale it should have, and then just for the heck of it, we added 2 zeros to it, and then designed it for it. We blew through that in the first 3 months. Yeah, right. And so what you see is in S3 is the principles of an evolvable architecture, meaning that with every order of magnitude of growth, you'll probably need to revisit your architecture. And so S3 has been built in such a way that we can actually evolve this over time. And I think that in that sense, it's a magnificent piece of engineering.
So I have another question, which is that that I won't let you off this stream without asking you about containers. Where do you see kind of the container space heading this year, or the next year, or the next?
Well, if I had a crystal ball,
I'd also like.
But then you would know that.
Yeah.
But you would probably be the one to ask this about.
It's a trick question.
Okay. I think Fargate will completely revolutionize the whole container space. The fact that you no longer have to do your virtual machine management, that you can really purely focus on. On building your container and dropping it somewhere without having to worry about all the management pieces that go around it. So I think that definitely is going to have a major impact on how containers are being run and built.
Okay, great. I think we're almost out of time for this segment.
I have one more question.
One final question.
What's your favorite band?
My favorite band, that's asking who's your favorite child. That's not really fair, yeah? At this moment, I'll probably pick Marion Hill. It's an EDM group out of Philadelphia, 2 people. It's amazing music. Check it out, Marion Hill.
Awesome.
Great.
Werner, thank you so much for joining us. Twitch, thanks for hanging out, and we will be back in just a couple minutes with another stream from the AWS Summit in New York.
Thank you.